Welcome to The View From Here, a podcast where we uncover the turning points, pressure moments, and the identity shifts that shape high achievers into who they are today. This show is for people who've built impressive lives on paper, but now their real story sits in the moments no one sees. The pivots, the breakdowns, the breakthroughs, and the internal rewiring that changes their trajectory. The View From Here is about perspective, the one you earn only by living it. Alisha Brennan is the founder of Groundwork Studio, a consultancy supporting service-based and hospitality-led businesses to grow with more clarity, capacity, and calm. With a background in senior hospitality, marketing, leadership, and brand strategy, she works at the intersection of operations, culture, and human-centered leadership, helping business owners build foundations that support them rather than quietly drain them. But Alisha's work was never just about systems. It's rooted in lived experience. Because the calm leadership she's known for today wasn't something she was handed, it was earned, shaped in seasons of being outwardly high-functioning and inwardly exhausted, after capable, relied upon, emotionally available, and carrying more than was sustainable for far too long. She's lived the quiet accumulation of responsibility, where competence became expectation, relatability became default, and strength slowly turned into invisible labour. She understands what happens when values become measured by how much you carry. This season of Alisha's life looks different. Her lens on leadership and success has shifted. It's less about momentum and more about capacity and sustainability. Less about holding everyone and everything together and more about designing work and life that don't require self-sacrifice in order to succeed. Today, we explore recalibration, responsibility, and what it truly means to build from steadiness rather than pressure. Alisha,
wow.
Welcome to The View From Here.
Thank you for having me.
Big.
Yeah.
You've done a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really weird having that read back to you. You said it would be, but it is. It's a lot.
What does it feel
Wow.
like? Tell me what it feels like.
It feels like I've finally arrived somewhere I was always meant to be. That's what I would say. But it's through this lens of like the calmness and the steadiness. I'm still equal parts chaos monster and perfectionist, but I feel like I've found a way to bring all of that together that makes me feel good, but also I can share that with people in a way that teaches them how to be sustainable and find greatness in what they do.
Beautiful.
That was really nice.
Yeah. It's
That
good,
was so
isn't
nice.
it?
Yeah.
It's
That
like a
was
really
nice.
warm, fuzzy moment,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. I'm not going to cry.
No, yeah, we didn't have tissues. I think that's the thing though, is in life, we don't praise ourselves enough.
No.
We don't acknowledge all that we've accomplished, not just in a professional sense, but in an emotional and personal sense.
Yeah.
And to have someone else take the time to express it back to us
Yep.
is very rare.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, I grew up in a wonderful family environment, but praise wasn't something that was given easily. And then I've moved into a career where very, very similar in nature, that outward validation wasn't what you would seek. It was about how it made you feel. So yeah, it's just a nice thing to hear that externally, and then also know that it's true.
Yeah.
That is who you are
Yeah.
now, or maybe that you've always been, but yeah,
Do you think
fits really nicely.
Do you think there's a version of you that once upon a time would have heard that and not believed it?
Absolutely, and I would have deflected it as well. I wouldn't have been able to sit with it. Well, I think I think not just you, but lots of people know me as someone that just gets in and gets things done, not that's out there looking for praise.
Yeah.
And if the praise comes, I tend to shift that somewhere else instead of sitting with it and how that feels.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's probably a deeper conversation.
And do you think that that is what's led to different burnouts and different moments of chaos?
Absolutely. And that expectation, and it's perception, right? I think often the expectation that you put on yourself isn't what others want from you. It's something internal. And I've always, I guess, sought my leadership for me has been about encompassing all of it, doing everything for everybody. And that's probably where I've got that validation from as well. So, yeah.
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 And it's funny, isn't it? I wonder whether that's a cultural thing in Australia or a global thing, or is it more top heavy in certain countries?
It's funny now, I think. I always thought it was cultural in the industry that I worked in, not that it was necessarily something that was more widespread. I think it is a global thing, but I think Australians are often known for, there's this perception of us that we're really relaxed and, you know, this lucky country where we all live by the beach and we get up at 5 a.m. for a swim and life's really chill, and it's not that way at all. Well, not in my experience. It's very much that hustle culture where, and you work hard, play hard. Perhaps that's more the best way to frame that. But yeah, I think that hustle culture is, what am I trying to say? It's not an epidemic, but off the back of COVID, we all live very differently, but it still exists, and it's something that I'm very passionate about reframing.
Yeah. It's funny you should say that off the back of COVID, that it's still present, because I felt like COVID taught us to slow down, work more within, and not overstretch ourselves, because we had all of that taken away.
Yeah.
And now I feel like people are like going back into it tenfold, because like I lost time, I have time to make up.
Yeah, you're making up for what you feel you missed.
Yeah, and it's nearly gone too far the other way, that more people work for themselves, but they don't have the boundaries or necessarily the back-end knowledge on how to scale that sustainably.
No.
And as soon as you use the word sustainable, people go, oh, I'm not slowing down, I'm not lazy, and I don't want to self-sabotage. It's like, how do we make sustainability a negative?
Well, that's what it is. That's what it's become. And I think you've just spoken to it. It's when COVID, lockdowns happened. Not only were we working, we've now transitioned to a lot more of us working for ourselves. There's a huge percentage of people that are now self-employed. Even when you're in that hybrid sort of working situation, working for somebody else, I think it was seen in the beginning as this space where that's amazing. I can get my washing done while I, look after the kids, and I do all the work that I need to get done, and I can multitask more effectively. And it's not the case. We've not created more balance for ourselves. There's a very good friend of mine, she talks to it not being work-life balance, it's work-life integration. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something I personally strive for, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have boundaries or that you don't need support in the right places to make sure that your focus is where it needs to be. Yeah. And I think that's how we've, off the back of COVID most particularly, found ourselves in a position where we are working harder than we ever have before. And we're not, you're right, sustainability is seen as this, it's almost a negative, a negative now. And that doesn't sit well with me. I think we need to put more focus on our well-being, not just sustainable work practices. And yes, we sell the dream when you work from home because it gives you more flexibility to do all the things that you want to do with your time. It makes you feel like you've got more, is control the word? Control over what you can personally achieve and how you define success. But it does lead to burnout. And that's exactly what's happened to me. And not once, like, this isn't something that I learned the first time that it happened. This is something that cyclically I've gone through on a number of occasions. And I retrospectively look at that now and think, once upon a time, I would have blamed that on the industry that I worked in. I've worked in hotels and the hospitality industry now for nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
I'm clearly
20.
Yeah, I'm definitely
Fast.
older than I look. But I feel like I've never been a victim, but I always blamed it on that. It was never about what I needed to change in my personal ethos or what I believed in or how I held myself accountable. It was always because of something else in my environment. But I had cultivated that environment, and I'm very aware of that now in my 20s, mid 40s even, that's something that I am absolutely responsible for. And yes, I've learned that the hard way. And, I can't sit here and finitely say that's never going to happen again either, because I think as we evolve and we learn in our business journey, it looks different in different seasons of your life. But what I know now is how to build those safety nets to better look after myself and be more aware of seeing what's ahead, that future. It's a, you can see it coming.
Yeah. Or do you get quicker at mitigating it when it's crept in?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the burnout isn't a 10 out of 10 burnout. It might be a 2 or a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think that I think in our lives, everyone experiences burnout to some degree. And I don't mean to use that in a term, like a way that it's a, very on-trend term. I think there's not many people out there that are exceptionally great at managing all of the things that they need to manage. And I used to be particularly hard on myself because I'd think, I don't have kids. I have freedom of choice in terms of where I live and how I choose to live my life. I don't have an excuse for, I'm not too busy, and I don't like that word. I don't have an excuse for, my plate being too full. I should be able to manage that. So you become really hard on yourself and how you've allowed that burnout to creep in too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's really valuable because traditionally burnout comes from a lack of identity and understanding your own personal boundaries and values.
Yeah.
And having your identity completely tied to accomplishment and professionalism or professional titles.
Yeah.
And all that you just explained is classic definition of what results in burnout.
Yeah.
And ironically, recently I saw somebody go on, I think it was Diary of a CEO, and then another one on Alex Hormozi is a big one at the moment.
Yeah.
And they don't believe in burnout. They're like, hustle harder, just double down, or you're not tough enough, which is a prime example. But I love now that Tony Robbins has unearthed that in Alex in a very public setting. But interesting, the attack that has happened and the cancel culture that has threatened Alex Hormozi because he was vulnerable, open that he'd made mistakes, that he was evolving and he wasn't perfect, and people couldn't cope.
No.
Which is toxic.
Yes.
Because we're talking about an epidemic of hustle being problematic, and you thinking it was industry-based, which now you're understanding that it's a cultural problem. And we've got people still out there in 2026 saying burnout doesn't exist.
No, and you touch on something there that I think about that a lot, and that burnout isn't something that truly exists, but it's also, we touched on with the Alex piece around how he's been treated as a consequence of sharing his vulnerability. And something that I've been sort of circling around a lot recently is that I really do value integrity over authenticity, because authenticity can be manipulated in a way where it's almost a performance as opposed to something that is genuine and a true depiction of who you are. But vulnerability can also be played upon in a way that feels insincere. So it's hard, it's really hard.
How do you know what to read?
That's right. Yeah.
And look, social media is our biggest asset, but it's also our greatest hindrance. And I talk about that a lot. But you just nailed it, is vulnerability is now used against us or used as a sales pitch. And honestly, it's one of the reasons that I started The View From Here was I wanted people to see that the hero's journey story is one way to connect with an audience. It's also a sales tactic, which is fine. That's all good.
Yeah.
But let's not focus on the down and the up. What's the stuff in the middle? And obviously that's what brings us into these conversations where it's, look, and I'm super curious, like, let's rewind this narrative and go back to the beginning. Like, how did you get into hospitality? How did you get to be where you are today? But where did that start?
You know, it's a very interesting journey to wind up working in the hospitality industry for nearly 30 years of your life. It's certainly not something that I intended to be the case. It happened by default, really. And I don't know what came first, chicken or the egg. I've always been somebody that's loved to create great experiences for other people, right? And what that looks like in the realms of, you know, how do I position myself? Do I want to go into a PR space, marketing, whatever it was? But I started in hospitality because I loved to do things for other people. I fell into the role because of your brother. But I fell into the role when I was sort of 17, 18 years old because I was a uni student that wanted to go and learn how to, create great events. I was moving into event management, commerce sort of space. But I just was not built for uni life. It wasn't for me. And I tried. I gave it a try a few times. But I loved being out in an environment where primarily I was making money, but also it gave me what I needed to be of service to other people. And I couldn't have told you that at 17, 18, that's why I really enjoyed doing what I did. I also worked hard and played hard, and that played a big part in sort of my late teens and early 20s. And it just continued from there. I was never somebody that wanted to be on the floor serving people wine and, the front of house style of food and beverage. But I loved to plan events, create those experiences for people. And then when I was about 25, I fell into a coordinator role. This is after spending time, I went out to Ayers Rock. I went all over the place working in the industry. And then I fell into a coordinator role here in Geelong. And I worked for a company called Accor, which is a huge, obviously, hospitality provider across the world. And there's a lot of opportunity there. And I was a natural leader, definitely somebody that had a high capacity, which, that can be twofold. And combining those two things within the event space, I started here. I got a lot of opportunity within Accor to move to Brisbane, and here I am 20 years later. But the journey in between that has been a bit like this. I've gone from director of food and beverage roles into more PR-based roles, marketing-based roles, director of sales and marketing roles. So within hotels, I've kind of worked across the entire spectrum of what that looks like. And I did have a stint there where I moved away from the hospitality piece more into working for myself, which was a networking-based business. And I think within that time, that's where I learnt the most about what leadership was to me and how I could cultivate an environment that leveraged all of the things that I loved, but also supported other people to see or to discover within themselves what they loved as well.
Yeah.
That's totally gone off on a tangent.
No, that's beautiful. No, but it is. It's the guts in the middle. It's how you've evolved, the skills that you accumulated by getting the opportunities that you created in different facets under that umbrella. But that's so important, isn't it? So you have really upskilled and evolved throughout that industry to now encompass a really good overview of what it takes to run each area.
Yeah. And even saying it out loud now, which is a bit of a muddled mess, because I guess in the thick of it, the messy middle, that's what it's been. It's been a lot of different things at different stages of my life. None of it necessarily, and that's where the chaos monster comes out. None of it's necessarily one big grand plan. And listen, I love to be in control. I love to know what's happening around me. I don't necessarily need to know all the pieces of the puzzle to get to where I want to be. I'm a great dreamer at understanding fundamentally what is best for myself. But I think the part that's probably tripped me up along the way to get where I am now is I've listened too intently to what other people around me think what's best for how I get to where I should be versus me innately trusting what I know is best for me to get there.
Okay. And yet super capable, great skill set, and obviously incredibly talented at your roles.
Yeah.
Where do you think that comes from? Was that a lack of internal identity or self-worth?
I think it's self-belief. I listened to a professional development coach a while ago talking about sports people and how they die twice in life. And the first time is when they retire, because so much of what they do is attached to what they do. And the phrase, I am what I do, is tied to their self-belief, instead of looking at, there's two parts to that, right? There's the I am, and that's your core beliefs, your what defines who you are as a person, and then there's what you do. And often we privilege what we do over who we are. And I think I got really stuck in that space for a long time, and not being able to define what I am, and to me that's, I am calm, I'm kind, I'm flexible. Like they're fundamental core beliefs that I have now about myself that I didn't have 15 years ago. And I was put into roles where leadership, it mattered, and I was really good at taking care of the people around me, and I tied my identity to that. So when other people that I perceived as more aspirational or really great at what they do, not knowing all the layers that sit below leadership that you're not seeing, I did tie my self-worth to how they perceived me to be or what I should be doing. Yeah. That took a really long time and it's only through diversity. It's not through me doing things perfectly and having just, great experiences. It's the benefit of hindsight that I've got to be where I am now. But absolutely self-belief and lack of that.
Yeah.
And I don't think I can attribute it to anything else, honestly. I just think that was something that I don't think anyone's innately born with it, but some people are better at cultivating it, or in environments where it's supported more, and perhaps that's something that I didn't have in the same way.
Yeah.
And it's only through, and I don't call it failure, because failure is only when you give up. And I've never given up. That's just not in my makeup. But it's through those mistakes and hard lessons that I've overcome that. Yeah. And not 100% overcome it,
Yeah. Evolving.
I'm evolving. Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be boring if it was all perfect.
Yeah.
But I'm interested that you can reflect on that and see that that was probably something that was a miss in the puzzle of life for you for quite a portion of time.
Yeah.
Do you think that having that amiss, but going into an industry like hospitality, where lots of younger, vibrant, extroverted people who bring a lot of energy, a lot of fun, that was what maybe drew you in because of that lack of identity? It was the culture of that was the draw card for someone who was feeling a little lost but needed maybe that little external.
Absolutely. And I was an exceptionally lost teenager because I was somewhere in the middle, right? I'm not, and there's a term for it now, ambivert. I'm not an introvert. I'm not an extrovert. I'm not someone that is just naturally comfortable in a space with a lot of people, with a lot of things happening. I have always, and it's always made me feel like I'm a little bit different. I don't feel that now. I feel bloody happy being alone, enjoying my own company. But when I was younger, that was something that felt like I wasn't the same as everybody else. So yeah, I absolutely did. I wanted to be in environments where outwardly I looked like I was having the time of my life, and I was learning how to be more confident in those spaces. But I didn't do that in a way that was good for me. Yeah. And I did that. It's a very hard lesson I'm very grateful that I learned that pretty quickly. At the time, it felt like a long period of my life, but it's I did, going off the rails would be probably pushing it a little bit, but I did live in a way that was absolutely unsustainable for my mental and physical well-being. I partied hard, I lived hard, and I worked hard.
But that's that culture around it.
And it still is to this day, and it's something. And toxicity is a word that's thrown around a lot. And I would say hospitality is probably one of the most notorious industries for it. And it's something I'm pretty passionate about. Still working in that space now. Look, it's a different generation now. People do live very differently to they lived in the late 90s and 2000s, but it attracts a particular type of person, and that can lead to very unhealthy choices.
Do you think when you say it attracts a particular type of person, I think about certain other industries, not just hospitality, but let's go with maybe the cleaning industry as well, where these industries often attract people of unskilled capacity or transitioning or needing money fast. So they are drawn into these jobs because there's opportunity for them to get work. And then they become career jobs for them, and they sort of slowly build into it. But it doesn't mean that they're necessarily evolving internally because of that. They've just filled a void of need.
Correct. Yeah. And that still exists now. It's certainly an industry for it. And it's an industry where there's definitely a ceiling in terms of earning capacity, growth, learning opportunity. I think in hotel and corporate hospitality, it's a little bit different, but you're 100% correct. It does. And that is why particular people are attracted to it as well. But interestingly, I think that culture is starting to shift. It's a much tougher environment now than it's ever been before. People, and again, perhaps off the back of COVID, or perhaps it's just people's desire for more intellectually, or whatever that might look like. I look at it as a much more transient industry now than it's ever been before. You're not looking to get people in there. Retention's not there like it has before. It's always had a huge amount of attrition, but it's not somewhere where people are going and staying for 25 years of their life.
Interesting.
They're doing it to get to the next step. And whether that's uni students, whether it is personal circumstances and needing, money to sustain life.
Sure.
It's very different to what it was before.
That's interesting. I had some restaurant owners on the podcast that's coming out soon.
Yeah.
And they said that I think it was like more than 90% of their staff are foreigners because Australians don't work in hospitality. And if they do, it's not
Very
in
short-lived.
that kind of industry. It's
That's
in
right.
the fast hospitality industry, like takeaway and a casual settings, not restaurants or hotels like you're in.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because that's kind of what you're saying too. So there's a commonality there. And they were saying it's nearly impossible to find a chef.
Yes.
Because chefs don't want to work the hours and reasonable overtime these days.
Well,
do you remember chefs that used to work
yeah.
like 70, 80, 90 hours?
Yeah.
All the public holidays, never paid a cent extra, paid pretty crappy pay.
Yeah.
Why would you want to?
Well, and it's a narrative that's just so challenging to shift, particularly for, the old school hospitality providers. There's a lot of legislation and a lot of law now around protecting the rights of work, as there should be.
Absolutely.
And well-being wise, that should be a non-negotiable in any environment. And the culture is a really challenging piece to fix or to improve. And they, it's up there with one of the most stressful jobs of any industry in the world. And the reason for that is it's not just hot and uncomfortable in the space. The pressure is exceptionally high, and you're trading off your creativity for this sense of pressure that you cannot manage, you cannot possibly manage. And you think about why in that industry, or not just chefs, but front of house as well, or in hotels, in lots of different areas within the business as a whole, levels of depression and anxiety and just general feeling of poor well-being is so high because the environment is so there's that word again, it's not sustainable. And look, there is a lot of work that's being done in that space, but you've got generations from boomers right down to, what is it, Z-Gen? What's the one below Z? There's
new ones.
There's a lot of them. And Z-Gen have got really good at having those boundaries in. Well, I think the pendulum starts to swing too far in the wrong direction, and that's a generalisation, I know, but they are really good at defining their boundaries and saying, this is what I've been employed to do, so this is what I will do. That you spoke to reasonable overtime before. Once upon a time, that would be you worked until the job was done. And if that meant that you were working 14, 15 hours a day.
Without a break.
That's what you did. And then they wonder why we're all in our 40s and 50s now and, barely hanging on.
And why there's no career hospitality workers in Australia.
There's no chefs left. It's funny, a very good friend of mine he's now a general manager. He manages a couple of hotels in Brisbane. He was an executive chef for many, many years, and he's moved now into the more management and leadership space. He speaks often about, with chefs, you're often trading off someone that's got great administrative skill for a lower level of creativity, or you're employing someone with a high level of creativity but much more challenging to lead and manage, but their administrative set isn't as high because there just isn't that mix out in the market anymore that want to do the job because they want to go home and spend dinner time with their kids, or go and do whatever their hobby of choice is on the weekends. And it's not an industry that allows that. And I'm one person, and shifting the needle is hard, but there needs to be more people like me in the industry or in some way advocating for the industry to try and shift that mentality that the harder you work, the better you are at what you do, as opposed to the value that you add to the business.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
And I love, though, that you speak to that. So that's been obviously a massive part of your evolution of experience, trial, error, experience. But because the reason, you said, I've had multiple of those burnouts in varying degrees.
Yeah.
But maybe that's because you swung between different sectors.
Yeah.
But still accumulated the same end point in every sector. But
a different learning every time.
But where I'm going with is that you got to see that there was the same problem in all areas. It didn't matter what you changed with the job role. It was still there. And hence now why you're so passionate, because you've been able to see it from different vantage points. See it and experience it personally and work on the ground with those people. How could you have that perspective if you'd gone from uni studying, say, hotel management or something, into management at that top tier and never have worked in those other sectors? You wouldn't know.
No, you wouldn't. And I think it builds so many different, I think, a lot of people believe that you're born with empathy and that's something that you innately have. But I also think that it's cultivated through experience. And it's something that I have learned absolutely through my hotel journey and what I do for a living. It's not necessarily because of my personal experiences outside of that work environment. That is something that I've cultivated through that learning journey in leadership. And you're right, I'm across different, very multifaceted journey, but absolutely. And it is a systemic problem across the board that it absolutely needs to change.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love that. So tell me, as part of that evolution and self-discovery of yourself and setting boundaries and things like that, what types of things do you implement from those lessons now into your daily life to try to mitigate going down those tracks again?
Yeah, and this is an ongoing journey for me, but the biggest thing that I've learned is that, and it is a fundamental human need around humans, they crave structure. You think that you don't, and you think, I used to have this absolute mentality that I was free as a bird to do what I liked whenever I liked. All of a sudden you're an adult and there's no real rules around how you can live your day or, use your time. For me, having that structure and routine in place it's a game changer. It really does. When you build into your day everything that your must-haves, your nice-to-haves, schedule it changes how you live your life. So I think fundamentally, from the moment that I wake up to the moment that I go to bed at night, there's some form of structure around what I do. I'm incredibly, firm, very clear around my boundaries and what I will and won't tolerate with people in general, whether that be in personal relationships or work-related relationships. And I've not always been very good at that. The people pleaser in me, always putting other people before myself. It's non-negotiable now that, as selfish as this sometimes feels to me, because it goes against the grain of who I thought I needed to be, I am my number one priority always.
Awesome.
And that's actually a really hard thing to sit with, because it's not a natural, it doesn't come naturally to me to prioritize myself. Mm-hmm. So that's something even now I work on every single day. And then it's actually so simple, but people don't do it. It's the little things about what I'm putting into my body every day, what I eat, what I listen to, consuming in terms of podcasts, or the music that I listen to when I'm going to, into the office in the morning. That sets the tone for how I'm living my life. I'm so conscious of what I consume. I'm really conscious of the conversations that I have with people and where they go and how I allow that to continue. And the other thing, particularly probably in the last 12 months, that's really changed how I manage that is, and this sounds really harsh, but I've very consciously cultivated the people around me.
Awesome.
And another thing that's not come naturally, because I've got a terrible case of broken bird syndrome where, You know, the second I see somebody that needs something, I want to get in there and I want to fix it, and I'm going to adopt them, and they can come and live with me. Like I'm very much someone that has always had this mentality. If I hadn't had those people in my corner when I was going through what I've been going through, you know, so I need to be that to everybody else all of the time, all of the things, all of the time. I don't need to be. And
Wow.
in hindsight, that's probably had a huge impact on, and I won't call that burnout, but just my steadiness in life, because I have prioritised looking after others or supporting others or helping others. It's a great skill in leadership to be able to identify what other people need and adapt accordingly. And in that space, that's been a huge benefit. It makes me really good at what I do.
Yeah.
But in my home life, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. No, but that's the lessons learned. That's you evolving. That's you being able to see what hasn't worked and not be tripping over the same things again. But I also love that you, because I can tell you've done the internal work by the statement that you said. That's what I've created, what I wished I'd had in those times with the broken bird analogy. But this is the thing. It becomes our kryptonite because it's ridden and driven by fear and guilt and sadness and old versions of ourselves that we're trying to heal through external things.
Yeah.
But when we realise that the healing needs to be done on us.
Yeah.
And that if somebody had just pandered to all of those elements of you back then,
Yeah.
it would have enabled you.
Yeah.
But
And I think I was enabled at times, right? And I think
Sure.
that's why I allowed, what you allow will continue. And you're looking at me because this is it is what I do. And and the universe will tell you'll cycle through the same scenarios.
You persists.
over and over and over again. And whether that's been in personal relationships or work environments, if you haven't learned the lesson, it will continue to repeat itself. And I'm sure if you asked my mother why I haven't learned these things sooner, she'd have something to say. But I do believe now that that's all been for a greater purpose. And you can put a spin on anything, right? But I do think I wouldn't be who I am now had I not have experienced those things. Beautiful. And for me personally, that's... it's not about being aspirational, but I feel now that I've got a lot of value to add in that space where I don't feel at that point in my life, I didn't have someone that I could go to that provided me with those kinds of lessons and learnings that I needed. So I can turn something that was perhaps not a strength at the time in being the people pleaser or being the broken bird syndrome, and now spin that in a way that I'm providing value to others
in a constructive
way. Yeah.
But that's great because and that brings you to obviously your current project. Groundwork. Yep. And obviously that's the backbone of it is creating systems and a formula that plugs up those gaps that you experienced, that you tried condoning, didn't work, but now have found and fallen and found different ways to make it sustainable, but also a whole business encompassing it. Which is incredible. And often the best ideas come from those things, from experience.
Right. Yeah, and again, that whole, there's no such thing as failure, there's just lessons and if you give up, that's failure. And I feel like I've been able to bring all of those elements together now in a way where, and it's probably the first time in my entire life where I've felt, and that's, the name says it, it's a grounded piece for me where I've never felt that sense of peace or awareness or capacity before. And I want other people to feel how that feels. And for me to be able to use my strengths to help other people, and it's not to do it for them, and I think there's a clear distinction there. My role isn't to come in and take over. My role is to come in and support people to see what they shouldn't be carrying, how they need to evolve, do things in a way that are more sustainable so that their business can move forward in a way that is productive, constructive, and they don't have to hold all the pieces at once.
Beautiful.
You know?
Yeah, I think it's incredible.
Yeah, and the piece that feels the best for me is that I do get to support people in a way that also fills my cup. Maybe call that external validation, call that what you will. But it brings me a lot of joy to see other people succeed.
Yeah.
And I've now been able to turn that into something that feels comfortable. It's like reading out a bio and hearing all the things that you do and you're great at. It's a hard thing to sit with. It sounds strange, but I've never felt comfortable with that before, and now that's becoming a superpower.
So good.
Which I love.
Wow.
And it gives me goosebumps. It makes me feel really calm saying that too.
When you find your purpose.
Yeah. And I thought that I had that down pat, like when I built the networking business 6 years ago now, time goes so quickly. I loved it, but it built in a way that was absolutely unsustainable. It grew really, really quickly. I was surrounded by a lot of really incredible local business women, and it was geared towards women. And I built it because I just moved back from Brisbane to my hometown, and I wanted to create an environment where I felt like I belonged, another fundamental human need. I wanted to build my network for my own business that I felt comfortable in, and that ambivert piece. I'm somewhere in between the introvert and extrovert. Networking isn't a relatively easy thing for me to do, but it takes my entire social battery to do it. So I was building an environment that I wanted, and other people wanted it too. But the lesson that I learned out of that was it grew in such a quick, unsustainable fashion that I couldn't manage it. And I didn't have the safety nets around me to look after myself, to build the business in a way that would carry me forward. And then COVID hit and I just let it all go. Yeah. And so now with Groundwork, not only have I got all that experience in leadership, in marketing and, the sales space, hospitality, service-based roles, I've got lived experience of what happens when you build something great and you haven't set up the framework to manage it effectively.
Yeah.
So that in itself...
Another lesson. But that's the thing. How many people go, I just want everything yesterday because I want fast growth. And, we talk about things on social like going viral and things like that.
Yeah.
But faster is not always better.
No.
Sure, you've learned some great things. You'll remodel that into today's business model to improve on it.
Yeah.
But how many businesses do we hear that have fast success, can't keep up with supply and demand, unhappy customers, and are no longer? And that sucks because it's not that they've done anything necessarily wrong, it's just they didn't have the back end to support.
Yeah.
And then they didn't know who to reach out to help build it.
That's right.
But imagine having somebody like you
who's
lived all of those things in a multitude of different ways, but now helping them create those systems.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're really good at.
Yeah. And to that point, it's not talent. 99% of the time, it's not talent. People don't lack the talent. They don't lack drive. They don't lack the understanding of what they need to do to build that business. What they often lack is a resistance to letting go of control. They don't know how to build the systems around them to lift them up. And I often say one of the greatest things in the roles, particularly in recent years, that I've taken on or, where I've been in leadership is I get to stand on the shoulders of giants. I don't want to be front and centre, shouting from the rooftops. I've built an environment for myself where everybody's success has equaled my success as well. And in business, I think we hold it all, and we don't, whether that's because we think that we need to do it all because it's our brand integrity or our personal brand, it's our money, it's our resources that have gone into building, particularly in small to medium businesses. You don't want to let it go, because letting it go isn't just fear of failure, it's fear that nobody else, if it's not me, nobody else can do what I do in the way that I do it. And then the other side to that is, perhaps it's that, or perhaps it's that you've surrounded yourself with people, but not the right people, or not in the right way, or you haven't provided them with the right tools to do the job to support you. And often we don't need support in the things that we're not great at. We need the support around the things we're best at, so we can then focus on the other areas of our business.
Or delegate.
And people have this fear of delegation and this need for control and all of us have it to some degree or another.
But it's fear driven.
It is, and it's very often the barrier that's preventing us from growth.
Yep, it's a ceiling.
Yeah.
And ironically, I work with a lot of business owners that experience that very thing. They're like, oh no one can do that because X, Y, and Z. And said, well, you haven't communicated clearly enough how to do it and how to execute it, and that actually is on you. And that sense of control means that you're hindering the capacity of somebody else to be able to fully do that role. Until you put them in it and put systems in place to support them in it, you're trying to create urgency of only you being able to. Then you're self-sabotaging. But that's your fear. That's your insecurities. That's your lack of knowing your values, boundaries, and purpose that's impacting all of that. So you have to own that. You're the central point of problem.
That's right. And it's also that mentality that if everything's not always urgent and if you're not always in high demand and people don't need you, then the business that's not a successful business. Like you've got to create this sense of urgency, or I'm always busy and always on the go, instead of just stepping back. And you hear it all the time. You work in the business instead of on your business. And business has seasons. Sometimes you need to be in the business, particularly in building phases when you've got a lot of things and a lot of balls in the air that you need to juggle. But at some point, if you want perspective, and it's not always about growth in terms of making the business bigger, but if you want the business to be effective, then you need to have those systems and plans and support in place. And we're too focused on urgency or hustle culture, or feeling like if we're not holding it all, we aren't successful. And I think, what's the percentage of businesses that fails within the first year? It's really, really high.
And then 3 years, and then 5, and then 7. So there's a lot of milestones to overcome. But I can even hear how you're speaking. You're speaking from lived experience, having done all of those things yourself. In
the
roles,
hard way.
But now so clearly able to see it in others. But designed ways to help them not keep making those same mistakes and add greater value, which I love. It's so beautiful. And to see that evolution from, the 17-year-old that fell into hospitality, probably more for social acceptance, and evolve into someone who now helps implement all of this structure and systems and sustainability so that we can keep seeing these industries evolve and grow is amazing.
It's a nice feeling to know that you're becoming part of the solution, you're not part of the problem. And I think when I think about what I call myself, or how I support businesses, and from a consultancy perspective, there's a level of support and education I can provide to people now through lived experience that I would never, if you'd asked me this 10 years ago, I would never have felt I had the knowledge or even just the intellect in that space to support. So to have got to a point now in my own career where 10 years ago I looked at it and thought, you've jumped from one thing to the other, you've done all these different things, you've experienced burnout, what value could I possibly add to somebody else's journey, to shifting into a period of time in my life now where that lived experience is genuinely valuable is it's a really nice thing. Yeah.
And you did it. It's
Yeah.
yours.
Yeah.
How's that feel?
I don't know. I'm still coming to terms, I think, with the fact, and you're a big catalyst for this as well. And that's another piece of this journey is that when we touched on it before, I've cultivated an environment around me now where you ask me how it feels to sit with that achievement. I feel amazing. Whereas, and I think that's got a lot to do with not only the fact that I know that I can do it, I'm surrounded by people that encourage me, I'm inspired by daily, that have taught me how to sit with feeling good about myself and what I offer. Yeah. It feels really nice.
Yeah.
What a weird feeling.
It's pretty cool. And the fact that you're just sitting here now going, oh,
yeah,
right, that's what I haven't even noticed. It's slowing down.
Yeah,
it's slowing down because you said that you're somewhat of an introvert and you like time on your own. But even that can still be time on our own of isolation, not time on our own to create safety with discomfort to reflect.
That's right. Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations around that this last few months about feeling safe in that space and what that means. And I've always used my time very productively, and that's an excuse for not wanting to sit with myself. And look, I said it before, I do like my time alone, and I do tend to use that in positive ways, not doom scrolling and focusing on the good things. But I can now sit in that space, and it's a really creative time for me. I feel at peace. I'm not looking for something to distract from what's happening in my life.
Beautiful.
Which is probably why I now feel more comfortable building what I'm building too.
So good.
Why did I not think about that until now?
How cool.
That is cool. Who knew that if you say things out loud or talk about them?
Well, when we ruminate in the mind, it just usually accumulates in a chaotic way.
Yeah.
That's why journaling, that's why meditation, that's why talk therapy, that's why finding a network of people like you just mentioned who inspire, elevate and challenge you safely is so powerful. And why even journaling. I've got clients at the moment where I get them to journal into a video rather than write.
Yeah. That's quite an uncomfortable space to sit in, isn't it?
Because then you've got to listen back to it.
Yeah.
You've got to watch yourself.
Watch yourself.
But what you get to see is the subconscious elements come through.
Yeah.
So it could be the cadence of your voice, words that you use, repetitive words you use, eye direction, body language, as well as the context of what you say.
Yeah.
But it gives greater feedback to all the senses than just writing.
Yeah. And so, interestingly, that's really funny to hear. Well, fascinates me because we naturally notice that in everybody else, but we're much less inclined to see that within ourselves. That's a really good tool.
So there's a couple of disorders that cause this, but have you ever seen a photo or a video of yourself and gone, that doesn't sound like me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the brain, it becomes so critical. It only sees the things it doesn't like rather than going, how cool are they? But when you sit in that space longer and sit in the discomfort and have done the work on yourself to be able to look beyond that, you start to see all the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Start to stop being so focused on the things you don't like.
Yeah.
And you start to see all of the things that are so incredible. And that's why I like the video journaling.
That is you go. That's another thing to add. That's an excellent tool.
Another way to do it if you're time pressed is if you've got a phone mount in your car,
Yeah.
put it on forward-facing camera and just while you drive, just press record at the start
Yeah.
and just drive
Yeah.
and talk to yourself.
Yeah.
It's honestly, it's really powerful.
Yeah.
But yeah, it brings forward those things that sometimes you don't recognise, like what you just had then, which is
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Yeah.
That with all the work, all the reflection, all the growth, all of these new stages.
Yeah.
And today you got to unearth.
And isn't it fascinating? It's like giving your elevator pitch about what you do and how you do it. And it's a really uncomfortable space to sit in when you've got to do that. But it's also, for me, it's always been a fascinating, and I don't know, I think shame has a place in life. I find it to be, I look at it now as quite a useless emotion, and I try really hard to not sit in that space. But I've sat there a lot in my life. And that's part of the reason why it's hard to watch yourself on camera and all those sorts of things, because all those emotions come up. But yeah, it's such a fascinating thing that I think I'm really good at articulating what other people need and how they could not improve their lives, but I'm very good at spotting the skill gaps and how they could put safety nets in place to support them in what they do. It's a much harder thing to sit in reflection with yourself around those things. It's a very uncomfortable space to sit. And that was a really interesting experience, sitting there talking like we were now, because you do have to sit with that.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. And I guarantee, as you marinate and ruminate over this conversation as the day goes on, you'll gain 2 or 3 other insights because now that subconscious is being given license to come through.
Yeah.
You'll be able to layer it in a little bit more
Yeah.
to sit in it. But again, you can only do this now because you've created the base to be safe to do so.
Yeah.
And I really love that.
But I want that. If everyone could have that in their journey, and I don't even want to say I'd like people to learn earlier in their lives than I did, because best laid plans and life happens. And I think I look at it now and the evolution that I've gone through, and I look at where other people that sit within our sort of age demographic, because yes, you are nearly as old as me. I look at it and I go, I'm really proud of myself that I learned the lessons how I did and when I did, because you talk to that sort of midlife crisis piece that a lot of people go through in their late 30s and into their 40s, 50s, that I see people moving through now. And I'm so not there. I'm so past that point. And I don't say that with a sense of superiority in any way, just that I'm so peaceful with where I'm at and feel so fortunate that I'm not there.
Yeah.
20 years ago, that was such a different story for me. And this is so far from the business conversation that I thought we might have. But
this is the real,
it's all part of why I am where I am.
This is the real conversation.
Yeah.
Because everyone can talk about the intellectual aspects of their business,
Yeah.
of their career, of their accolades.
Yeah.
They can talk about their lowest point on a surface and then go to the success because that's the comfort.
Yeah.
But what they can't do is sit where we've just gone and talk about the hard stuff, the lessons learned, the reflections, and the stuff that's still happening. You said, I'm not there yet and it's still evolving. You just showed how you just evolved in real time using reflection. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the gift that keeps giving when you allow it.
Yeah. And stepping out of that space of, time is of the essence. Like time is not infinite.
It's a gift.
It is, and every day. And, I often think about the different pivotal moments in my life where those sorts of things have shifted. And it's when you've experienced loss. And a huge one for me was, as you know, but 5-6 years ago. And it genuinely, it wasn't a pivot, but the trajectory of life changed as a consequence of seeing how that impacted and rippled through life, not just with me, but with friends as well. And all of those different moments where you have those.
But you only utilize them because you choose to act on it. Whereas many experience challenges, life lessons, big monumental moments, and make a choice to implement action, but can't create the longevity of that decision, and fall back into old habits because they don't prioritize it as a value. But when you value it and you value you and the feelings and the experience that it produced, that is when it's a gift, and that is when you can implement sustainability around it.
And that's that high performance piece. Like, you can be a high performance only matters in the moment. It's not what you do in the lead up. It's not what you think about retrospectively. It's how you're managing that in real time. Yeah. And I think, there's so many challenges and complexities that come with that. But yeah, it's an evolution.
Life isn't attacking you.
No.
Bad things aren't happening to you.
No. And that's a space where a lot of people sit, and it's a very challenging narrative to move.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to be someone that's part of that solution, not part of the problem. And what do they say? It's like 93% of your thoughts daily lean towards. That's right. And it's you that has to, you've got to break that, consciously break that cycle to.
Which is what we just did.
Yeah.
We literally just broke another, or put another piece of the puzzle back together.
It's a little uncomfortable.
It is. It is.
It is, but it's also
right
that
now,
self-awareness
are you feeling
piece.
like a little, what are you feeling?
I feel like it's never been challenging for me to self-reflect. It is challenging for me to self-reflect in an environment where I'm doing that with somebody else.
You've got cameras in front of you. So natural.
Yeah. But no, even that piece, you sort of tune that out a little bit. But you can, I'm really good at self-regulation by myself, but doing that with somebody else, it puts a different spin on how you perceive yourself as well. And you can't control that narrative when you're in real time either. Like, it's not a text message, it's not a phone call that you're having where you can think and pause about it in the moment. It's just kind of got to flow.
But then don't you think that also teaches you the greatest areas of still to find growth in, to gain perspective from and insight from?
For sure.
And so how cool is that? Because yes, you mentioned control quite a few times throughout today. And we just took that away in that moment.
Yeah.
But when you get the opportunity on your own to self-reflect, your subconscious will suppress what it doesn't believe you have the capacity to control. And so these real-time moments are absolutely pivotal, because that is allowing you to keep.
Yeah, and not hold so tightly to those limiting beliefs that you think that you've overcome. There's a difference between being aware of it and overcoming it.
Layers of the onion.
Yeah.
Layers of the onion.
There's a lot of those.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So tell me, what are you working towards? Obviously, you've got Groundwork launching, it's up and running. Tell me what life is looking like for 2026 for you.
At the beginning of this year, and I do this every year, I sit down and I write my reflections, but I don't believe in resolutions, but I sort of set intention and words that I want to live through. And for me this year, it was about flow. And flow to me means, we mentioned there's controls come up a few times today. That's something that I am working a lot around, and allowing things to just be. I've always been somebody that can figuratively go with the flow. I can adapt and be quite flexible, but I think I internalize a lot of things that outwardly I don't unless you know me well, I don't allow to show. So for me, this year is all about flow. It is about business building and building that business in a calm and, constructive way, the slow burn. But what I want for myself, first and foremost, is to feel grounded, feel at peace. I think happiness is something that ebbs and flows in life. I don't necessarily lean into that term, but to feel like I am at peace is the goal, I think. And I have had snippets of that over the last sort of 18 months to 2 years, and I want to create more of that.
And what's brought that to you? What's one thing?
Steadiness in life has been something that, that the chaos monster in me hasn't felt a lot of, because I've moved around a lot. I have lived different lives in different physical places around Australia over the years, and that's been for a multitude of reasons, but I've never really sunk my feet into one place for any long period of time and felt grounded in that. I felt grounded in myself, but not in my physical environment. And I think that's going to play a big part of how I create that feeling of flow and peace. Does that make sense?
Totally.
I've never genuinely full body felt that before in my adult life. As a kid I had that, but not as an adult. And perhaps that's something I've chased in different ways but never experienced.
Great.
Yeah.
And have you ever thought that maybe it was always in you and you were looking for it externally?
Absolutely I was. Not an external validation piece in the, the way that...
Home is where the heart is.
That's right. Yeah.
Which it's like one of the oldest sayings.
Yeah.
But it's ironic when we go, oh, it's not a location.
No. And it's in you. And the physicality of where I live has always mattered to me. I'm very much a warm weather girl. I like the sunshine.
Can we just say that you're now living in the coldest, minus Tasmania, you're living in the coldest part of the country.
Oh.
It's like 16 degrees outside. It's freezing.
It's no good.
And it's summer.
It is summer. But that for me, and long term, I want to create an environment where I could, when I talk about home, a physical base, home for me is my family, my nieces, my siblings, the friendship group that I've had since I was 12 years old. That is the physicality of the space that I'm in now. And that is very grounding for me. It's very supportive. It's something that I've worked hard to, I guess, reintegrate into my life after a long time of not being here, and instability in romantic relationships and all of those things that have formed who I am now. I don't want this to be the place that I'm based forever. I want to be in the sunshine, in the warm weather, further north, all of that. So I'd love to create an environment where I can have the best of both worlds. And I know you've said this to me for a long time, why can't you? And I can't articulate terribly well why I haven't allowed that to be the case, other than some level of fear in various different ways. And I've limited my capacity to create that. That is what I would like to work towards. And it's also why I guess it's why I want to do what I do, because that's the personal fulfillment piece, but it's also flexibility of physical location and how I live my life. So don't say I told you so.
Never, I wouldn't. No, this is incredible, because I'm hearing you, honestly, for the first time ever, communicate with clarity. And
was that clear?
It was so clear. It was clear to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you spoke with flow and ease, and the cadence was beautiful. The words were there. You were in it. I could see your eyes, and just physically you went there to the vision, to the dream, to what you're creating. Yeah. This isn't a goal, it's a dream.
Yeah.
A dream is what you create.
Yeah.
And I can see that you're implementing those steps, which is helping you process those fears and creating the foundation. And you said it. It is within you.
Yeah.
It's now practicing and strengthening that connection.
Yeah.
So that you can fully trust it and embody it.
Yeah.
And allow yourself to keep going into it.
Yeah. And actually believe that it's possible. I'm not.
It totally is.
Yeah. And
You
I
are
don't feel
the
I
steerer
felt
of
that
this
before. Yeah.
This is your show.
Yeah.
Everyone is the director of their own life.
Yeah.
And when you embody that, you realize that all of the rest is just noise.
Yeah.
And it's you that gets to choose what you listen to. And you said it in a figurative way of, I choose very selectively who I spend time with and what I listen to and what I watch and things like that. Now it's about doubling down on what you choose to tell yourself. Now you've blocked out the noise. It's choosing that.
And it is, right? It's that self-talk piece, or that self-belief speak that we talked on earlier. It's something that's always tripped me up along the way. You get so far in the journey and then that creeps back in, or
cut it down.
And you've got the good voice, the bad voice, however it works for you in your mind. I've always had the nous and the drive to get ahead of it, but it's never so much that I haven't still allowed it to infiltrate into how I navigate through those things as well,
Sure.
which that's definitely started to shift. I feel a lot more, that voice creeps in and I can put it aside.
Yeah.
Whereas before it
Spoke
slowed you
loudly.
down, or you kind of diverted in another direction to move forward. So,
And a good thing is when that voice pops up, lean into it. Not lean in to give in. Lean in to hear what it's saying, because what it's saying is speaking the truth of how you feel. And when you hear it, you then find the facts that don't support it. So if it's saying, oh, you're not good enough, it's about being able to go, hang on a second, look at the stats, the figures, the facts that support why I'm really good at this job.
Yeah.
And suddenly you realise there's such little evidence to support what it's saying.
Yeah.
And there's so much more. And you have just proved to your brain, you've rewired your brain to see things that are factual, that have evidence behind it in your world, rather than seeking external validation of, oh, I don't know if I'm good at this. And people go, yeah, mate, you're so good at this. That only really goes to surface level, but it doesn't change the narrative and that voice inside of you that is still going to be there.
Yeah. It's
And
that.
that is so powerful.
Yeah. It's fascinating experience.
Are you thinking of an example right now in your own head?
A little bit.
Yeah. You don't have to share it, but,
No,
but use it. But
Yeah.
use it for that.
Yeah.
Lean into that.
Yeah.
Video record yourself talking about that.
Yeah.
Talk to it.
It's that imposter syndrome, right? Like the number of times I've heard that you're good at what you do, or you can do this, and you go, yeah, well, I am.
Yeah.
And then you get into that environment, and I often think about, and we talk about this a lot, sort of in the circles that I work with in what I do day to day. You wouldn't take that advice from someone
That you don't aspire to be.
No, and for me, and I talk about this with you, I don't want to put a spin on it where it's coming out in a negative way, but as a 40-something, with a lot of lived experience, good, bad, and otherwise, I'm not seeking out someone that's 30 that hasn't, and it's not about age, but it's just that lived experience at that point in their life, on their healing journey. I'm not seeking what they can offer because it's not aspirational to me. It doesn't support my growth, or so I think I put myself in this category where it was like, what do you have to offer others based on your standing and where you're at life, or all the things that you don't have or they do have? What can you add that's valuable to them? But it's more about what I'm looking at from and it's perspective, right? Everything's perception.
Well, it's because you're not owning those parts of you.
Yeah.
And allowing them to be the loudest voice within you.
Yeah.
Because you're not connected.
No.
But when you do connect with it, you start not needing the 30-year-old. You start or when people give you praise, it's lovely. And that's okay to like hearing it. But it's not your sole fuel source.
No.
To self-validate.
No.
It's thank you so much, and you genuinely mean it.
Yeah.
And it's great because what it does is give you a direction that, great, it's connecting with them.
Yeah.
And my job is done there.
Yeah.
But the real work is feeling it within you. Peace and happiness equal fulfillment.
Yeah.
And you said, oh, happiness, I don't always get it. Peace plus happiness equals fulfillment. People go, oh, I don't know if I'm fulfilled. Find the other two and you have it.
Yeah.
But it's
or
about
they're
connecting.
Striving just for that happiness piece. And if that's all that you're working towards, that does. It comes in seasons.
But it is short-lived.
Yeah.
Like you're seeking it to feel something.
But then you get that, and what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And I think I am, and
we've all done it.
Well, we are. You know, that as creatures, that's what we feel that we're seeking.
If I work hard, I'll reward myself with this.
Yeah.
Work hard for what? So you reward yourself to feel better
for
something that you chose to create.
Yeah.
Or absolutely you can work, the word hard's a bit tricky to use, but yes, you can work towards things and reward yourself as long as you're rewarding yourself in the meantime with lots of other micro wins.
Yeah, and we don't do that. That's something you find in business a lot, is we're so focused on the end goal, we're not celebrating those little successes along the way. And culturally, that's what really depletes an organisation, because there's no
there is no end.
No, and no sense of achievement, and that's again, it's achievement or belonging. It's really empty. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
And look, I think your story is so powerful, because I think where you've been, where you're still going, the growth, like even just seeing what you just went through, a few minutes ago, just shows the power of all that you're still evolving into, but how much richness you can offer those that you work with, because you're there with them on the ground. Hence the name, evolving and helping them grow from lived experience, but also with structure and strategy is so valuable. Yeah. And I am so excited to see where it goes. And I think, it takes one person to start creating change. If you can change one person's business and life and the employees, that they show how things are done, but in a positive way, you've made impact, and that is powerful.
And that's the thing,
one
right?
at a time.
Small impact, big change.
One person at a time. We change culture. So I would love to ask you one question, because I know we don't really have set questions. There's only one I ever ask. Yeah. And I'd love to hear, upon reflection of what we've talked about, and then everything that is you, what does the phrase, the view from here, mean to you?
You've asked me this question before, and I framed it in a different way, I think, than what I'm going, what I want to say today.
It's an evolution.
It is an evolution, but and to some degree, it's the benefit of hindsight and being able to look back on the journey that I've had from where I started, all the messy middle, and where I am now. And that in a nutshell, I think. But if you go deeper down into that, following on from today's conversation and some of the uncomfortableness that I have felt in pulling that apart more, it's really hard to put into words, actually. I look at it, it makes me really excited for the life that excitement feels like something that you attach to something that you're doing moving forward. Whereas it actually makes me really excited for what I've been through to get to where I am now.
Wow.
I don't know what other word to use other than that. I feel excited. And I don't think that I've ever in my life felt that level of... I have a lot of great gratitude and I'm very grateful for my life, but I've never felt that level of gratefulness for what I've, and I'm going to say achieved in life, not just experienced, to where I am now, to what that means for me moving forward. So,
Wow.
yeah.
And you used the word shame before.
Yeah.
There's no shame attached to it anymore.
None.
Peace.
Yeah.
And you said you wanted peace.
Yeah.
Maybe you're already there.
I'm definitely a lot more peaceful than I've ever been in my entire life.
Wow.
Yeah.
The view from here is pretty beautiful then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well done.
But it's not just about what's to come. That's, I think, been such a great
here.
experience today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shut up.
I know. Honestly, I have loved every minute, and I know I said to you before we started, no idea where this ever goes, but the beauty that comes out of it, honestly, I've got the little lump in my throat because this has been so beautiful and so wholesome and raw and authentic that I hope anyone listening or watching can see the emotion or hear the emotion, because this is why I love having these conversations. I can sit with people I've never met. I can sit with people who I know, and still the beauty that comes out of it blows my mind. And I say there's three intentions from this: that the guest, yourself, you get something out of this by a growth and insight, something that a viewer, it changes one person's life by getting to see a different perspective, learn something, grow from, or make a change and realize the choice is always theirs. And the third thing is that I also experience some insight, inspiration, growth and evolution myself. And if I've achieved that, then it's the best feeling. And I feel like today has been a bloody good day.
Thank you for helping me articulate things I can never bloody articulate.
We have to do a whole series.
You have to come and visit me more often.
Good excuse. But look, thank you so much.
Thanks, Nick.
And thanks for sitting in the discomfort. Thanks for trusting me. And
Always.
I can't wait to see 2026. Year of the horse. Let's go.
Peace.
Thank you.